Welcome Bitcoin friends, it's Bitcoin Mamo. Today we're going to look at the Bitcoin charts. We'll do some TA, we'll look at various time frames, and we'll also take a look at market cipher. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to start here on the weekly chart. We have this yellow rectangle drawn, which is the 2-week order block coming from this red candle in an uptrend. This is an area of supply and demand, and it becomes of interest later on and can act as a support or resistance zone. So we can see we are still in this 2-week order block, and we will open a new 2-week candle next week. But we are looking on the weekly chart. You can see we had this parallel channel drawn on the log scale. We did come down and touch the bottom of that channel. We also have this weekly order block higher up at around 61.2. And I think this may act as resistance when we do come up to it on the first attempt. But I want to look here at the VPVR. This is the amount of volume traded at certain price levels, and just want to compare the first pullback here with our current pullback. I've got this volume profile drawn over a fixed range. So this first one here on the left is from the bottom here at 29k, looking at the volume traded over this range and this pullback, and not including this green candle here. And we can see the point of control here. The most amount of volume was traded at around 46,050. We can see we closed below that, and once we closed back above it, we did continue on this bull run. You can also see we did pull back to this spike on the VPVR here at around 39.8. Looking at our current pullback here, this is taking the volume profile starting from this red candle here, and what we can see is the point of control is at around 57.1. We can see we haven't closed below that point of control yet on the weekly time frame, and currently we are around that level. There are several days left in the week still. But for the moment, it does seem that this level is acting as support, whereas in this previous pullback, we did close below it. Both pullbacks did come back to this trend line and get a nice bounce. We also see a spike here on the VPVR, where this weekly order block is. And on this pullback to the trend line, we can also see we came back to another spike here on the VPVR, and pretty much to the bottom of the last support. So this is still looking good to me, as long as we don't start closing below this VPVR support at around 53.9. Let's move on to the daily chart now, and comparing these pullbacks again, taking the fib retracement from the 30k low here to the 53k high. We did pull back to that 0.5 level, and this 0.382 level did act as resistance here. And once we did close above it, and also this downward sloping trend line, we carried on this bull run. Looking at our current pullback on this run from 39.4 to 69k, did a similar thing, pulling back to this 0.5 fib level, and now we are getting resistance at that 382 level. We are getting quite close to breaking this trend line here, and also the 382 level. We can see that they do pretty much interact here on our next daily candle, and this key level would be around 57.8. Could we come back and touch this trend line one more time? It is possible before getting the bounce and breaking this level, but I don't think we are going to start closing below 53.5 and breaking this key support on this channel drawn. If we were to come back to this trend line on the next daily candle, the bottom of this trend line would be around 55.150. Personally, I do think we're ready to start breaking out here. It would be good to see that on the Friday rather than the weekend, as to not create those gaps on the futures chart, which is closed over the weekend. We do also have these order blocks drawn in here on the daily time frame. You can see we have been staying within these 3 order blocks here. We did dip below briefly and came to these lower order blocks, and then we did get some resistance here at the top of these 3 order blocks when looking at the daily closes. The top of that is at around 57.840, in line with that 382 level. You can also see this higher order block here, quite a thin one. It's at 58,780. You can see it has acted as resistance as we've wicked into it several times here. Pulling up the daily EMA ribbon now, we can see it is around this level of the downward sloping trend line. Currently the top of the ribbon is at 58.8 and it has been acting as resistance on all these attempts higher. And looking at that previous pullback, we can see once we did get above this ribbon and start closing the daily candles above it, we did carry on this bull run. And just to show you that VPVR here on the daily, we can see that point of control, the most amount of volume traded, was at this 57,000 level. And we are currently battling that level. And the VPVR does start to drop off here above this 382 level at around 57.8. And we can see if we were to come back to this trend line here, this would be at around 55.2 and also the top of the VPVR support. Looking at the stochastic RSI, we did move all the way up here on the daily. We can stay quite high here for a while, and we do see those bullish moves when we do stay above this 80 level. Looking at the RSI, I do have these two red lines drawn here, and I just want to compare to our previous pullback here when we were down in this zone. And what we can see is we are playing within this range on the RSI, and this level at 47 has acted as resistance several times here. It did also act as resistance on the previous pullback, and that was around these candles here where we got that resistance. And we can see a similar thing on this current pullback with resistance on these candles. So this would be a key level to get above on the RSI. However, looking at the Bitcoin futures chart on CME here, we do still see a difference on the stochastic RSI on the daily. It's only at a 33 reading. And doing a similar analysis here, we see those same fib levels, that 382 level. And again, we bottomed out here between the 382 level and the 0.5 level. Similar here on our current pullback, we're between the 382 level and the 0.5 level. And looking at these downward sloping trend lines, can see it acted as resistance on the first attempt after bottoming out. On the second attempt, when we did close the daily above it, we did continue on this bull run. And looking at the current pullback, we can see that we have closed above it on the daily on this candle here. We are pretty much in line with this trend line. We did close below on the previous day, and on this current day's candle, we are currently above it. And this trend line is at 56,460, and on tomorrow's candle would be at 55,680. But we can see this bottom trend line of support on this channel is starting to get close to interacting with this downward sloping trend line. We can also see the EMA ribbon on the daily has been acting as resistance on all these wicks here. We are still inside this ribbon. The bottom of the ribbon's at 56,730 and the top is at 59.1. And a similar thing, once we closed above the EMA ribbon here on this futures chart, we did continue on this bull run. So there are a lot of similarities with these pullbacks, and I do think we are getting close to starting to go on a run here. And I think it's a good sign that we are above this downward sloping trend line on the futures chart. And let's go down to the 4-hour time frame. We've got the same setup here with the fibs and these trend lines. And just looking at the current pullback a bit more closely, we can see we did try to break above this trend line, did wick above it several times. We actually closed above it here on the 4-hour chart and had this pullback. But we can see this trend line on the 4-hour is at 57,580, pretty much in line with that 382 level. And we see this blue trend line from that channel we had drawn is currently sitting at 55,350 if we were to get a pullback in the next 4 hours. We can see this trend line rising and getting quite close to this downward sloping trend line, and they will cross in pretty much exactly 3 days, which will be the exact daily open on Monday. These two yellow blocks here are the areas where we do have spikes on the VPVR. And just to show you that, we have a lot of volume traded where these yellow rectangle boxes are drawn. So again, we can see it does line up with the 382 level and also this downward sloping trend line. We do see the 4-hour EMA ribbon is starting to squeeze here, so it does become less relevant, and I will rely more on that daily EMA ribbon. And now I just want to compare these two pullbacks here. when looking at market cipher on the 1 day, 2 day and 3 day time frame. So just pulling up that now, we do see the 1 day time frame here on this first row, the 2 day on the second row, and the 3 day time frame on this bottom row. We were talking about waiting for this green dot to appear to get confirmation that this was the bottom. And we were close to getting it on the previous candle 2 days ago. But we do currently have this green dot, and it will be confirmed on today's close, which is happening very soon. We can see the similarities here on these pullbacks. See on the daily we got the green, red, then a green dot, and we did a similar thing on this pullback. And now we were looking for that 2 day green dot that has appeared, and it looks very likely to get confirmed. And then we did get a 3 day green dot a little bit later on. And we will open a new 3 day candle also after today's daily close. We do see when we got that green dot on the 2 day, we did get this decent candle and break this downward sloping trend line. So I think that's about all. Just a quicker one today. Hope you enjoyed that analysis on Bitcoin Mamo. I'll see you next time. Bye.